That side ran into the center. Okay, I'm gonna get the screws loose, and then you can finish it. Yeah, I'm gonna get them loose. Welcome back. I'm Jim Murphy. The channel's You Break It, You Fix It. This is video 5 of the C10 build series, and we are rolling right along with this thing. As I mentioned in the last video, I'm waiting on a bunch of parts for the rear end, so we're jumping away from that and heading to the front of the truck. I found out once I started tearing things down, the core support's rotted out on the bottom of this thing, so I want to get the new one in there and fit the sheet metal before I go and blow everything apart. Got my little fixers with me today, help me tear things down. Okay, we're grooving right along. I hope you can hear me over my heater and the coolant draining down there. No matter what I work on, I try to do multiple things at once. If I can be letting something work, like the coolant draining, I'll work on something else. So now that I've got that opened up and draining, I'm gonna work through some other things. I came in this afternoon, I didn't film it, but I took the cowl off. One lesson from removing the cowl, you have to remove the wiper blades to get these off. And I say this a lot, and I'm going to say it, and you're going to hear me say it till the day I die. You always want to set yourself up for success when you're reassembling something, because you might be the next guy to work on it. And whoever reassembled this truck thought they would never work on it again, and they painted over the shafts for the windshield wiper blades and then just stuffed them on without cleaning the paint off, so they were a pain to get off. I actually had to get my big slide hammer out to knock them off. And a side benefit, we're shaving the antenna hole on the cowl right there. So I just clipped the antenna wire because I don't know what we're gonna do for antenna, but it won't be this. And I was wondering what this big dumb wire was in the engine bay. It goes, yeah, that big one along the back. This one right there. Someone drilled a hole over there in the firewall and then ran it through and drilled a hole in the cowl over there, and I was wondering why they would do that, and I'm still wondering why they did that. So we're gonna be welding those holes up. I want to clean the engine bay up a little bit. It's a little bit cluttered. As I keep saying, this won't be the permanent engine in here. We're gonna be doing an LS in this eventually, so I don't want to go crazy with the engine bay, but I want to clean it up a little bit. There's a lot of things you can do on these trucks, like running some of the wires through underneath the fender there, and then running some of the face wires, running some of the wires that go around the core support up underneath the core support, just like a newer car would have, and it really tidies things up really nicely without doing a ton of work. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to get it locked off on the tripod. I'm going to work on zipping some of these bolts and screws out, and I've got a few tips and tricks with this disassembly thing I want to share with you. As you can see, I got the radiator out, the grill out. That was a real pain in the butt. Bumper off. We're in pretty good shape here. We're in pretty good shape as far as the grill, bumper, radiator support area is concerned. Next, I don't want to take the radiator support out without taking the weight of the hood and the fenders off. You can do it. I could probably put some jack stands underneath the fenders so it doesn't tweak or bend any of the mounts, but I got to take the hood off anyways, so I'm going to do that. The sheet metal fits pretty okay right now. and I want to know exactly where everything goes back. And when you take a bolt out that's been in for a while, it'll leave, let me see. Here we go. It'll leave what's called a shadow mark. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see exactly where that bolt face sat. So when I go put this back together, I can line that up with the shadow and I'll be pretty close. It doesn't always do that. So what I like to do in a scenario like this where I know I'm going to be fitting the sheet metal maybe 2, even 3 times, I'll take a can of spray paint that's a drastically different color than whatever the surface is. So this is all black in here and this is just gray primer, and I'll dust over the heads of the bolts. That way I have a defined shadow and I can get the sheet metal really close the next time I go to fit it up. And then on final fit up, when we're completely done, obviously we can't use the spray paint trick because we'll be painting over it. We'll drill and pin all the hinges, all the mounting surfaces. That way when this thing goes together, we just line those pins up, zap the screws in, and we're good to go. Probably it's darker than a boot in here. I don't know if you'll be able to see on the camera, but I just dust over each head. Of course, if you're doing this, you don't want to get this on other stuff. Mask it off. Cool, easy peasy, and I'll even do it on the fenders here too. I think I'll use black on those so I can get those lined up really well. Just when I go to fit everything back up, because I'm gonna have to fit again for the door skin, and I want to fit with the new radiator support in, I want to be able to easily put it right back close to where it was, so I don't have to do any monkeying around. Especially with an older vehicle, there's tons of play in the bolt holes. It's good to know where that goes. And if you pull any shims out, when you're pulling panels out, in this stage, what I like to do is zip tie them in the hole where they go. That way I know exactly where to put them in when I'm doing my next fit up. And again, when it comes to paint, that's a little different story. Depending on the shim and the location, I've actually tack welded these in so that way I don't lose them and they go exactly in the hole they're supposed to. But we'll see on final fit up how many shims we need and where we need them. I'm gonna quit for tonight. I gotta go home and be a husband and a father. Getting ready to pull off the hood with my nifty little hood puller tool. I made another video that shows you how to build this and a lot more detail about it. There's a little bit more to it than what it looks like, so make sure you go watch that if you plan to use something like this to pull a hood. I'm gonna get you locked off and we'll get this hood pulled off. There she is. The hood's levitating on its own with this nifty little hood puller I built. Make sure you go check out that video because this thing is so handy. And if you don't have an engine hoist, make sure you get one of those. I was just on Facebook Marketplace this morning and I found another one for $100. $100. You can't get anything for $100. You can get an engine hoist, and since you're on the build series, you're going to be still seeing another shop tool that I'm going to be building for this thing. It's going to be super handy, so obviously make sure you stick around for that.
The front end teardown continued to go smoothly, other than a few little hiccups and looking for tools my kids misplaced. It was pretty boring, so let's pick up the pace on this a little bit.
We are rocking right along here. Got the core support out, the fenders off the front end. There's my little fixtures in the cab jumping around, stabbing holes in the old seat. What? I see you playing down there. Anyway, got a ton of progress done. It is so satisfying tearing stuff apart and just seeing it all open. I think next I'm going to jump in the cab and pull the seat out and try to get the old gas tank out to lighten that up, and then probably gut the doors. So that's where we're at right now. Got to change a diaper on one of the Ninos, and then I'll get working on pulling the seat out and the gas tank out.
I want to hold that lid.
You can hold the little one.
You got this for me?
I got it, so I could use it too, but you can use it for now. It is yucky mucky back here. We're gonna get the seat pulled out now, and there are many feats of engineering on this truck, and the seat is another one. I think it had 2 bolts that were solid bolted, and then 4 other cross-threaded ones. So it's been a real fun project. And there's a ton of mouse poo and yuckiness back here. It looks like they made a home out of an old book. It kinda. So we're gonna keep ripping on this and get the seat pulled out. Boom. Okie dokie, got the seat out, and it is absolutely disgusting under there like I thought it would be. There's a chewed up old book from mice. At one time they thought they put a speaker in here. Back in high school when I would drive this thing, I always wanted to listen to some tunes and could never figure out why it didn't work. And then I realized one day there were no speakers wired up in the system. So before I move on, I want to get the cab vacuumed out. I don't want to be breathing in mouse poo. And then we'll work on gutting the doors down.
Vacuum suck. Nailed it.
When everything was together on this truck, you could tell that they had replaced the rockers on this thing. In areas where there's supposed to be factory spot welds, I don't know if the camera will focus, but like in this pinch weld, there are a bunch of factory spot welds in here. There were no spot welds on the rocker, which meant someone had plug welded those and ground them, which that's fine. That's what their repair is supposed to look like. But towards the edges of the vinyl flooring, you could see where there was rust pouring out from underneath the flooring. I thought 2 things. Maybe it had just, from sitting for 10 or so years, just getting surface rust and moisture buildup in here. It can rust, no big deal. Wire wheel the floor, and you can put Pour 15 or something like that down on it, and that's totally fine. That's a legit repair. But whoever did this truck redid this truck the last time, they loved Bondo and they loved fiberglass. It goes back to what I say all the time. It costs twice as much money and twice as much time to do something the wrong way than it does to do it the right way in most cases, and this is a perfect example. Sheet metal is dirt cheap for this truck, and I'm talking, I think it's like $20 for a cab corner, $20 for a rocker. That's cheap. It's easier to fit up sheet metal and weld it and only do body work on a little weld line like that instead of whacking and packing this thing full of mud where there's big rust holes. So I think what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to be doing a more in-depth assessment on the floors and the inner rockers on this thing. There's a big glob of Bondo going through this cab corner, which I had been kind of suspicious of just by looking at the edge of this cab corner. It looks like an edge that's full of Bondo. They did a pretty okay job on the bodywork, and even where this lines up with the door, it didn't line up and it looked funky, so you could tell if you've done bodywork, quite a bit of bodywork, you could tell there's quite a bit of Bondo in there. It sucks we found that, but I think it's kind of a blessing to be able to get at least the cab corner off of it, get part of the rocker off of it, and really get a good look in there. When you're this far into a project, you don't want to half-ass stuff. You want to really take it down to as far as it needs to go, especially on the 67 to 72 C10s like this, and even the square bodies. Sheet metal is so stupid cheap for those things. You might as well gut the face of the metal off and see what you're working with behind there and just weld a new panel on. By the time you get done and you spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 restoring these things, you want it to be right, and you really only want to do it once. As I said, I'm kind of glad we have to do this. And on the driver's side, it looks like I think just boogered in a panel in the kick plate, in the kick panel down here. I don't know if this will lighten up. Yeah, you can see this is that's a piece of plastic they use like upholstery adhesive on and glued over there. Bunch of fiberglass in the floor and Bondo in the floor. I want to wire wheel the crap out of the floor and get that stuff out of there to see what's behind there. And I've got a feeling though that we're going to be doing some floor sections, inner rockers, outer rockers, and cab corners. Sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't much once you get going on it. It's not a bad thing. It's more work, it's more money, but it's going to be right when it's done, which I'm much more comfortable with. I'm going to push forward on this. I still want to get the gas tank out because I want to see down into the floor better. So I've got a few more little tedious projects in here. I want to gut the doors down still today. Oh yeah, I got to figure out where all this mess of... There's so many... In an old project like this, there's so many random wires you have no clue where the heck they go, and this is no different. So my next step, getting this gas tank out of there. I'm really glad that I put a half a tank of gas in it before we went to tear it apart. That was smart. But let's rock and roll. Got both my little fixers in here today. They're hard at it. We are moving right along. The interior's gutted. Got some kitty litter from the gas tank. Got the gas tank pulled out. The little gas line pushing the floor. Got all the wires in the cab labeled. I've got to hack a lot of old wiring out of this thing. Someone wired in many different systems, and we got to chop that out. Right now, we're going to get these doors completely gutted out. That way we can pull the doors off and start doing the door skins, and I got to do a lower shell on that door. As I've been tearing this out and gutting it, we're finding more and more sheet metal issues, which that's common. It's like an old house. Sometimes you pull the carpet up and there's a nice hardwood floor in there. Sometimes you pull the carpet up and the floor joists are rotted. No different on an old vehicle. Don't get disappointed. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. If you're in a stage where you're learning how to do something, you get to learn how to do something even more. It sounds like a lot of work, and it can be, but I'm at the point of doing this kind of stuff where I kind of get excited when I find more issues, because it just means I get to get my hands deeper, get my hands on more parts of the vehicle, which I love doing. And for the sake of filming YouTube videos, I just have more stuff that I get to show you how to do. So I'm going to stop talking at you. I'm going to get the doors gutted. I'm going to leave the latch in. That way, as we're fitting up the new door skin, we can latch it and make sure everything lines up nicely. All right, we're going to start pulling off the interior trim panels. If you've never worked on an old vehicle before, you may not know what this is. This removes the clips for the door handle and the window crank. So we're going to get those off. See what? It pushes that clip out.
I'll hold it.
Yeah, I'm going to show people on the... This is for people that have no clue what I'm talking about. You can see that little horseshoe looking clip in there. Right there. These two little prongs push on that clip and release it. When I was younger working on hand crank stuff, I thought you had to jam this in there and fling that clip out. You don't. You just barely push on it and try to slide it off the shaft, so you save the clip, and then just push it right back in its home. And when you go to put that back on the shaft, you just push it on. You don't have to push it on and then try to line the clip up.
Yeah, wobbly. Oh, you got that out?
Yep, trim panels out. Standard door teardown procedures for you. They're relatively the same once you take a few apart. On a door like this with vent glass, or even if it was a rear door with the little fixed glass in the door, relatively the same. You're going to want to remove the vent glass first. There's usually some trim screws in this top frame here, and then you'll find there are some screws for the track that go down into the door, and those, you got to take those out because you need to remove that entire channel and that entire vent glass before you can remove the big glass. And that gives the big glass move to slide off the tracks in there and come out, and some of them are pretty wonky angles, so it might, if you're not good at Tetris or the shapes game, it'll probably be really hard for you. So just to give you a quick demonstration, I'll pull this vent glass. I already removed the screws. I'll pull the vent glass and I'll pull the door glass. This glass, buddy.
How'd that go? Why do you need to take
One thing I forgot to mention with removing this is on some doors you might have to remove the upper window gasket on the inside of the channel so that can slide backward. And on this particular door, there are two little either weather strips. They're also called inner and outer belt moldings in the collision world. The inner and outer belt moldings have to come out of this before that vent window can roll back enough to come sliding out. So I'm going to pull all that stuff out just to make it easier for the glass to move in there. Again, with the door Tetris nonsense, I had to take the rear lower track out. I think that's going to help me slide the window back and pull the vent window up. With whatever you're working on, if it's a C10 like this or your other project cars, it's just what you have to do to get windows out. You have to play the shapes and Tetris game the entire time. It's never fun. I am having a heck of a time, buddy. You're right.
Let's get out.
Yeah. Yeah, these belt molding, weather strips, whatever you call them where you're from. I don't know if you can see the clips. These clips can be a bear to get out. Now, if you're reusing these, you have to take your time and be gentle. I'm fortunate that I'm not going to be reusing these, so I got a little aggressive with them. I still try to be gentle just to display to you that you can be methodical about getting this stuff out. Now I think now, finally, I'm glad I'm doing this on the camera and I'm struggling with it because I've taken hundreds of doors apart and this is kicking my butt. A little bit of thinking, a little bit of persistence will pay off.
Guess what, Dad?
What, buddy? Boom, vent window out. You can see how long that track was in there, and it had also this little foot on the bottom that was getting stuck on stuff. It can be a pain right in the butt. Okay, again, I'm really glad I'm struggling with this because I've actually had these C10 doors apart before. It's really easy to edit this stuff out and look like a hero, but I think it's important to show you that even with my experience, it's still really hard to figure this out sometimes. So I don't know if you can see if I can get close enough. You cleaning over there? Yeah. There, yeah, I don't know if I can get the door high enough. So on this track, you can raise the door up. It's hard to see. It's really hard to see where they are, but there's two little arms that ride in a track here. And we will slide the window out of the boom, window out. That only took a long time. On these tracks, yeah, it won't focus, but there's recesses in the end of the window channel. You'll see them on yours and in the middle. I probably didn't need to raise it up that high, but I couldn't really see in there. And you raise it up until the wheels in the window regulator fit through those holes and slide the track, and you'll be able to slide the regulator right out of the window track, and the window can come up. I got the door gutted as far as I'm going to go before I put the skin on. I'm going to be doing a power window kit in this, and I want to leave the old regulator in there so I know where the hardware is. It's not going to get it in the way of the door skin. I'm going to do the other side. I don't need to bore you with twice the footage. I wanted to get a little bit more detail with this thing because it can be applied to anything else you're working on. This isn't specific to just a C10. And then the last thing I want to cover in this video is the sheet metal valuation, why I decided that we're going to replace the panels in the floors and things like that we're going to, that I just discovered while tearing this thing down. Alright, I got my driver door all gutted and found a big old mouse nest in there. So if that doesn't catch on fire when I do the door skin. I want to take the last minute of this video and talk about what panels I've decided to replace that I found and why. Because important if you're fairly new to doing this, or maybe you've been doing it for a long time but in a different capacity, to talk about how to think through these problems. Because it's really easy if you're new to things to watch these car repair and restoration shows and just think you have to gut every piece of sheet metal and put all brand new metal in, and it's not really that cut and dry. As I've said many times, this truck was restored probably about 20 years ago, and someone did a semi-okay job for that era. I used to get really frustrated with prior repairs and things people did and just really be mad at the person that did it. But it's pointless, A, because we don't know their skill level when they approach this. You know, for someone doing this for the very first time 20 years ago, this is a pretty good job. Also, we don't know what their budget was. You guys yelling over there? We don't know what their budget was, which, you know, some of you might say, well, don't do it if you can't do it right. But at the same time, if you're just trying to throw a truck, maybe they thought they're going to keep this forever and they're just going to throw it together once and then completely redo it, then we don't know the reasons why they did what they did, but it needs to be replaced or repaired. First off, the cab corners. You can see where this truck used to have trim molding on it, and some of the holes they welded, those were great. Some of the holes they just packed Bondo in there. That wasn't that wrong 20 or 30 years ago. But now we know better. We know we can weld those holes up. So I'm going to do new cab corners. They put new rockers on at one point, but didn't replace the inner rocker on this side, so they just slipped a rocker on over. So I'm going to do a new rocker on this side. Going to do new rockers. I think I might do a new inner on this side. And then the front cab supports on the bottom side of the floor, I'll try to get a shot of those. There's some small rust holes. Originally, I was just going to cut them out. And then Eastwood makes a really good internal frame coating. Spray the frame coating in there and then weld up that hole. Be done with it, but I'm just going to put new ones in there so I can see what's behind that. I'm not sure what they left in there. The floors are pitted on this side pretty badly, but I stabbed it with a screwdriver really hard, and they seem like they're going to be okay. So I'm going to wait till I can wire wheel those to make a decision on the floor. A lot of the reasons, the main reason why I want to replace the cab corners rockers on each side is just to see what's behind it, really. I mean, I could dig the Bondo out and probably weld up the holes that are in there and straighten them out decently, but the cab corners are $20 a side, the rockers roughly $20 a side, so for $80 in sheet metal, it's well worth just cutting it off and seeing what's behind there. I would definitely stay tuned for that portion of it because there's a huge pet peeve of mine that we're going to talk about when we weld in the new rockers and cab corners, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So we're at a really good point right now with the front end teardown. I can do a ton of sheet metal work now. I can get the parts ordered. I can get the cab corners and rockers ordered. I want to do the door skins and the lower shell on this side anyway before I do the rockers. That way I can line the new cab corners and rockers up to the nice new skin. It looks like on this side they didn't do that. I think they just, in a novice mistake, is to cut the cab corner out, cut the rocker out, weld the new one, and never fit the door, because they made the opening a little bit too small where the top of the door frame rubs and the bottom of the door almost touches the rocker. So it's nice we get to address that. Initially, I was going to cut the cab corner and rocker anyways and slide it down and slice the body lines to make them and re-weld them to make them line up. But with new sheet metal, we don't have to do that because we can now just line our new panels up. I'm going to leave you right there for this video. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching. Time is a premium, and I appreciate you spending your time watching me work at you and talk at you. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button. I don't want you to miss any of the C10 build. There's still a lot of the really cool, awesome stuff is coming up. Make sure you like the video. I'm Jim Murphy. The channel's You Break It, You Fix It, and I'll see you in another video. It doesn't have a diesel engine in it, buddy.